Hi, guys. Welcome to this week's episode of Zygote at Home, our video series featuring Zygote's instructors, member artists, staff, and friends. This week, Zygote renter artist Sarah Royer will demonstrate how she makes prints on her press at home using a Solarplate. Many printmakers use solar plates because it's a safer alternative to traditional etching and relief printing, which use a lot of toxic chemicals. So Sarah is going to explain how she uses solar plates right now.
Hi, I'm Sarah and welcome to my home studio. Today I'm going to be relief printing a solar plate. Solar plates are a non-toxic alternative to traditional printmaking processes. It's a light-sensitive steel back plate that's exposed in ordinary tap water. Here's an example of the solar plate that I'm going to be printing today. And I want to show you how extremely thin a solar plate is. As I turn it, you can see that even though it's an extremely thin plate, you still get a decent etch, which allows you to roll the plate in relief. And that's what we're going to do right now. So since the solar plate has a steel back, it's magnetic. Underneath this paper, I have a magnet, and the reason I did that is so that my plate stays still and doesn't shift around while I'm inking it. And while I'm inking, when I'm inking at my home studio, I always use Akua ink, which is a soy-based ink, and it's a non-toxic ink. And the other reason I use it is because it's easy to clean. So you get your brayer and to put ink onto your brayer, you roll the ink in one direction. And a little trick of the trade is if you listen closely and you hear that bacon sound, the bacon cooking on the stove, that's when you know the ink is going on the brayer plate. You want to make sure you ink in layers. So here is my first layer. I'm nervous. Okay. And I'm just going to do one more pass to make sure that I got those raised parts in the middle. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm just double checking it to make sure that every part that I want to, on the surface that I want to print, has ink on it. And you want to be careful during this because you don't want any ink to go into those middle sections. If it does, it's no big deal, but you would prefer it not to. You always set your brayer up. And one of the reasons I like to work with the paper on top of the magnet is because it protects the paper and it's easy cleanup, but also it's an easy segue. Okay, so now we're ready to print, and I have my registration board here, which is just a piece of paper where I drew registration lines for the plate and the paper, and I taped plastic to it, so in case ink gets on your registration board in between prints, you can easily wipe it down. So I'm going to put my plate right on the register, right in the middle. Okay, steady. And right there. Okay. Make sure I don't have any ink on my hand. And grab my paper. And set the paper right on the lines. And I always put a buffer paper in between to protect my felt. And put my blanket down. Smooth it out. And run it through. Okay, and so let's see. This is always the moment of truth for any printmaker. So when you pull it, when you take your paper off the plate, you put one finger down on one corner and you gently pull and there you have it. Pretty decent relief print. So here are some examples of the different types of prints that you can get from one Solarplate. Here's an example of an intaglio print, the same plate. Here's an example of an embossing, which is just the paper run through the plate. And this is a really cool effect. This is an example of both intaglio and relief. And this was what we printed tonight.
Thanks, Sarah. Since we don't have a solar plate to work with here at home, or a press for that matter, this week I thought we'd try a very, very basic form of relief printing. Remember, we talked about relief printing a few weeks ago. It's when you use a block or some sort of substrate and then you carve into it to take away the negative space, then you put ink on it, and then you make your print. Well, the most basic form of doing that is a stamp. So what I have here is a Carve a Stamp kit. You can find stamp carving kits online or at Michael's or any other of the large craft stores should have it. And since a lot of people are reading books these days because they're home during quarantine, I thought we would make stamped bookmarks to give to people. So let's see what comes in this stamp kit and what tools we need. Most stamp kits come with the tools that you need already inside. And this is what I came up with for today. We have stamp pads, obviously. You can get whatever colors you want. I just have the basic office colors, blue, red, and black. And then of course you have the actual stamp pad that you're going to carve onto to make your own little stamp, and it's, stampy material. I have some scrap paper, and then I pre-cut some bookmarks out of cardstock, so these are a little bit heavier. Then you need a pencil. And the tools that come with it, they're not for the little ones, but supervised, it should be okay. These are carving tools. These are actually not the ones that came in this kit. These are from Zygote, but they're just little carvy tools. If you've ever carved a pumpkin, same kind of thing, or if you've ever made ceramics, clay, it takes some getting used to. And then also I have an X-Acto blade, which helps for the initial carving. So the image that I'm going to use today for the stamp is this adorable little ghost, little kind of perplexed ghost is this what I decided to do today. So first things first, I'm going to clear our workspace a little bit, and then and also the kit comes with some transfer paper. This is just basic transfer paper. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take my pencil and my transfer paper and whatever image I want to put on, and I'm just going to carve. I'm going to trace the outline of whatever I want it to be through this paper. The more simple the design, the easier it's going to be to carve, obviously. And if you've never carved before, you might want to pick something pretty simple to start out with, because carving is tricky, as it turns out. Okay, so I drew my little guy here. I'll move this aside. And now I'm going to take my little stamp pad, set it down. Actually, you know what I'm going to do first is I'm going to cut out this guy, just make it a little bit easier to work with so I don't have that huge piece of paper. Okay. So now I'm going to take it and I'm going to put it face down right onto the plate where I want it. And then I'm just going to use my fingernail to rub over where the lines are. And then what that's going to do is it's going to transfer the image onto the plastic, so then I can start carving it out. Let's see if this works. Hopefully it works. And voila! Now I have my guidelines for carving my little ghost stamp all set. I mean, you can draw directly onto the stamp too. It's just easier to do it this way because if you start pressing on it, it's going to make indentations. So now we have the tricky part, the carving. To start, I think the best way to start is to use the smallest of your tools. So this is the small one. And just very lightly go around. Don't dig deep. We're just making the line on the outside. So you can see I just made very lightly a line. Then you go back again and you want to start removing a little bit more, and always carve away from you. Do not carve towards you because these are kind of sharp, and if you are digging too hard, you might end up cutting yourself. So carve away. Okay, you can see, and it just comes out, it's like little plastic stretchy stuff. And you have to be very patient with this. It takes some time. So now I'm going to do the curve around the head. You don't have to use a lot of pressure to get the line that you want to start. Okay, now you can see I've gone all the way around. The bottom where the angles are is where it's the most tricky. So you just have to, like I said, take your time and be very patient with yourself, because if you cut too far, then it's game over. And remember, when you are inking this, you have to think about, we want the raised part to accept the ink and then the background not to touch the pad. So we need to carve it all away, but first, there, just the very light outline. See? Now I can start to go back in, and I'm going to remove obviously all of this, but now that I have a nice clear outline, I can use my bigger tool. It's just a little bit bigger. It's really hard to see on here. And this will start to take away more. All right. And this is the same technique you would use for, maybe you've done a linoleum tile cut before, or if you've done ceramics. It kind of feels like clay, like you're working with clay, even though you're not, you're working with plastic. So as you can see, I've just started carving away the background on one side. And this is going to take some time, so why don't we check back in a moment. Okay, we are back, and I finished carving my little ghost. As you can see, the eyes and the mouth are pretty hard, but I did all of the negative space and got everything, so now the only thing that is raised is just my little ghost. So let's try it out. Let's do a test print. Remember I talked about test prints. We always want to test before we do it on our final bookmark. We're going to test it on a piece of scrap paper. So let's try red. All right, this is the moment of truth. That's a cat running down the hall. Okay. Making a huge noise, as you can see. I have a few places, now you can see, there's a few places where it's picking up the background, and this is how you can test to see if there's some spaces that might need to still be taken away. So I'm gonna go now, really quick, carve those a little bit lower. I switched ink pads because I think this one will be better. It's still red. Let's see. Oh yeah. Oh, I like that much better. Ooh. Perfect. Now we're gonna do our bookmark. So I'm just gonna do a series of them, kind of like they're flying down. So let's ink up, get it nice and well inked, and then with a lot of good even pressure. Perfect. One little ghost. Another ghost. A lot of pressure. Perfect. Look at that. An adorable ghost bookmark that you can give to family and friends. You can do both sides. You can, like I said, this, I don't know if I showed you, but this is actually double-sided. You can see an earlier attempt that I made here that didn't turn out as well, but this is double-sided, so you can do two different designs, and then you can use whatever colors you want. I hope you enjoyed this week's Zygote at Home. If you like these videos and you want to help support Zygote during these difficult times, please click the link to donate. It's down there in the description below the video. Those funds will go to ensure that Zygote can continue our mission to share the love of printmaking. Bye guys, see you next week.